Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at a really busy 48 hours for Donald Trump, legally speaking. Four court rulings came down against his administration.
That's right.
We're going to unpack these using analysis of the events to figure out what they mean for policy, for how government works. Let's just, get straight to it.
Yeah, it's quite something. Four rulings in 2 days. It really shines a light on how the courts are reacting and quickly to some executive moves.
Exactly. So Monday, our source talks about three rulings from that day. First, a judge ordered government money that had been frozen to be, well, unfrozen immediately. We don't have all the tiny details, but the court clearly acted fast. Why such speed?
Well, usually when a court moves that fast with an order like that, it suggests they think the original freeze was maybe legally weak, perhaps it didn't follow procedure, or lacked solid justification. It's like hitting a quick reset.
Okay, that makes sense. Then the second ruling on Monday. It involved putting limits on sending migrants to a certain place. Again, no specifics on the location, but it's the court stepping into immigration policy, right?
Definitely. And in those kinds of cases, the legal principles often revolve around due process for the people involved, and also making sure the government's actions actually line up with existing immigration laws, maybe even international agreements. The courts are there to check that the rules are followed.
Gotcha. And the third one on Monday, this feels like a big one. A judge blocked an order trying to effectively undo birthright citizenship. The ruling specifically mentioned the 14th Amendment. I mean, trying to change a constitutional amendment with an executive order, that's pretty fundamental, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. You can't really overstate that. The Constitution and its amendments, they're the bedrock. For the executive branch to try and change that on its own,
Yeah.
well, that sets off major constitutional alarms. The judiciary sees itself as the guardian against that sort of thing.
Right. Okay, so let's move to Tuesday. The focus here was a federal judge ordering the CDC, the FDA, and HHS to put website content back up.
Mm.
Apparently, info on women's health, prophylaxis, HIV/AIDS treatment, important stuff, was taken down end of January because of a Trump executive order. And doctor groups challenged this. What was Judge Bates's reasoning?
What really stands out is that Judge Bates basically said the government hadn't shown any proof that putting the websites back would cause harm. Zero evidence.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, taking the information down was likely hurting everyday people, especially underprivileged folks. It could delay treatment, then you saw a clear imbalance.
Yeah, that seems pretty clear-cut. Our source also mentioned something about the Paperwork Reduction Act of 1995 potentially being violated. Can you sort of break that down for us?
Sure. Basically, that act means government agencies have to follow certain steps when they make big changes to how they share information with the public. Just pulling down significant health info like this without the proper notice and process.
Yeah, that could be seen as skipping those required steps. It undermines transparency and, like the judge noted, potentially harms people who rely on that info.
And the executive order itself, the title was Defending Women from Gender Ideology Extremism and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government. The source suggests this wasn't just about women, despite the title. What are your thoughts?
Well, when you see language like that kind of loaded phrasing in an executive order title, it often signals a broader ideological agenda behind the specific action.
Right.
So removing health information based on that kind of premise, it naturally raises concerns about whether access to scientifically sound, evidence-based information is being restricted for lots of different people, not just the group named in the title. Now, the source makes a key point. All four of these rulings, they were temporary restraining orders, TROs. So, legal pause is not the final word.
Exactly. Important distinction.
It also points to this pattern, right? Trump's executive orders getting challenged in court and stopped pretty quickly. Is this just, bad lawyering, or is there something bigger going on?
It's hard to say definitively it's just one thing, but when you see this consistent pattern challenges being filed and courts issuing these kinds of holds, it certainly raises questions about the actual legality of the orders themselves and maybe about the administration's whole approach to using executive power. It suggests there might be a gap between what the administration wants to do and what the law actually allows.
So wrapping this up then, these four court decisions, even though they're temporary, they really highlight this ongoing legal pushback against executive actions. And they bring up these kind of fundamental questions about presidential power and its limits. The immediate effect on health information access really shows the real-world stakes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And it leaves us with something important to think about. Since these are just temporary holds, what happens next with these policies? What's the long game? And maybe more broadly, what does it signal about our checks and balances when executive orders face this kind of immediate, significant challenge in the courts, time after time? What does that tell us about how our government is functioning right now?